So good morning, everyone. It's a rather sunny day, but the weatherman says it's going to rain later here in Binghamton, New York. And it's been kind of like that, Lisa. I mean, it's been sunny and then it rains. And I don't mind. I kind of like the sun in the morning and the rain in the afternoon to cool things off. Well, this is 𝐸𝓂𝒷𝓇𝒶𝒸𝒾𝓃𝑔. You're watching or listening to Smart Conversations, and I have a very special guest today. This woman, Lisa DeAngelis, welcome, Lisa.
Hello.
Lisa wrote a book. We're going to talk a lot about the book, but we're going to talk about the message in the book. We're going to talk about why Lisa wrote the book and kind of how she wrote the book, because I'm in love with this book. Let me put it up here. Embracing the Unknown, Lisa DeAngelis, exploring the pathways to change. So this is the big thing, Lisa. This is the big thing. Change is something we're also afraid of. But before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit more about Lisa. I mean, I could just talk about the book all day and you could sit there and nod your head, but we don't want to do that. That's not what we're about. And as a side note, I don't think Kitty's going to come and visit us, but she might. She gets up here sometimes and gets in the way.
Sometimes the creatures get really excited about change. This has happened with a few of my friends. Their kitties kind of crawl up and sit on the book and just decide they're going to hang with it for a little bit. So I take that as a compliment. They're not always so open about their compliments. So I'm going to take one as a win.
I would do that. Yes. I mean, when she hears me talking to someone, she's like, oh, let me go see what that's about. I hear her now. She's coming. All right. Lisa DeAngelis. Lisa DeAngelis is a holistic change practitioner, author, teacher, and speaker. Her vibrant, dynamic personality, which I can attest to, and broad array of professional experiences inform her intuitive approach to doing life. I like how you say that, doing life. Lisa is certified as a teacher of the Alexander Technique was certified as a teacher in the Alexander Technique in 2009 and brings a warm, thoughtful, and creative, very creative demeanor to her passion for change and transformation. Walking with individuals through the meaningful intersection of their lives is an integral part of her mission. Her book is inspired by her own unfolding journey and ongoing desire to empower others in navigating change. She's an avid traveler, singer, and lover of the arts. Lisa lives and works in New York City. She's passionate about building meaningful relationships and helping others authentically. In her book, again, Embracing the Unknown, Lisa, the thing that attracted me to this book was Embracing the Unknown, the title. And I think it was because you used the word embracing. That is a theme throughout the book, is that we're all here, our lives, tomorrow is, we don't know, it's unknown. And instead of worrying about it, instead of getting yourself all worked up or getting stuck in a rut, we should embrace the change, the unknown. How did you kind of choose that title itself?
Great question to start this off. Thanks for recognizing that. My choice of words throughout the book was really quite intentional, and words like embracing, exploring, curiosity, non-judgment, observation were really important to me to build in, because what I find my sort of inclination is to want the answer and to want to figure it out. Get the quick fix. That's my gut reaction. I know I'm not the only one.
Nope.
It was really important to me to recognize that this topic, this study, is so much bigger than that. There is not one answer. Even if there was, it was only going to be one answer for a little while until we go on to the next thing. So it was really important to me to choose language that continued to invite people in and ask questions. And I think that was something that I was really proud to end up at. That being said, the book had a different title when I was writing it. And I really, really struggled with figuring out what the title should be because I knew the original title was not right. It was
Wow.
yeah, it's really fascinating. The original book I started writing because the book morphed as I was writing it. But the
Mm-hmm.
original book I started writing was conceptualized as a book called Points of Intersection, where change, choice, and opportunity meet. And I thought I was really interested in those moments, right? Those moments where we make a choice and our life deviates into a different path.
Mm-hmm.
But as I started writing, as I started researching and interviewing and talking to people and really reflecting, it wasn't just that I was focused on those little moments. It felt like something a lot bigger, a lot more holistic.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea of what were we really talking about? And I went through all of the different iterations of how to change and designing your life with change and all of this ways to think about it. But really, I kept coming back to this idea that it all felt too specific and too pointed. And I really wanted to open up this space where people could just feel comfortable stepping into an uncomfortable space, which is
Yeah.
really what embracing the unknown is about.
I really appreciate that because that is what I tell the people I work with, the authors I work with, that their book will change as they're writing it, and they will change with it. And so when we talk about transformation, and you're all about transformation, writing a book transforms you.
Absolutely. I really wasn't quite prepared for the layers and the levels of transformation, and I'm just sort of stepping into the next phase as now the book is out into the world, and I'm
Yeah.
looking at what I want to do with it more than the moment. Because this is another example. You really put all of your energy and effort toward one specific thing, and what do you do when the thing happens?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your
I
life
mean,
doesn't stop. It's not over, but it can be really difficult to just allow it to continue on if we've poured so much into one specific purpose that we've lost focus of what we're really doing in a much larger sense.
I hear you. I hear you. And that's a really, really good point to make. And I want to read a little bit about the book. Change is a result of each of the choices we make and how they come to life. So I love the word choices. I tell people all the time, everything you do is a choice. So here you are, you're confronted with this wonderful thing or this not so wonderful thing. It's your choice how to react to that, how to have that in your life and not let it derail you, so to speak. So I really love the word choice. Unlocking the secret to change is about embracing the unknown. Rather than a prescription or step-by-step directions, creating and navigating sustainable change requires a new set of guiding principles and core values. In discovering the optimal tools and conditions for change, we can adopt them as a mindset and live them as intentional choices. Change can be approached and embraced now and in an ongoing way. And as we just said, it's not always easy. So you tell us a little of your backstory because it's really fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Well, I joke that I sort of fell into this. I fell into this whole thing of learning about intentional change. I have had many stumbly moments where my stubborn system wanted to really figure it out and try to do it. And over and over and over again, I just kept coming back to this idea that it's not about that. It's not about this.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your eyes open, look for the bigger picture. All of these things in my life were little reminders of this. But when I was 18 years old, I was a young singer. And the world was my oyster, literally and figuratively. I had moved away from home for the first time. I was exploring all of these freedoms, meeting different types of people. Everything felt like it was just ripe and full of possibility. And after my first semester in college, I started having, or near the end, I started having some jaw problems. And so I was home for winter break, went to see a specialist. And after some scans, he told me I needed reconstructive jaw surgery. And it felt like it was going to stop my life in that moment. Really, it did. Because I thought, I'm a singer, but I'm a singer. How can that be possible? How can I risk something like this?
Mhm.
And it was one of the first moments in my life where I had to decide, should I listen to this expert who told me he knew what I should do for me? Or should I really listen to my gut, my intuition, which was telling me, no, gosh, that's not right for you.
Mhm.
And I didn't do the surgery, but I still had this issue. And it caused me to continue saying, okay, what's really going on here? And how can I actually figure out a way to fully live my life with whatever issue this is, with whatever problem I have? What if I didn't need to just throw it out the window? And I found a holistic change practitioner, an Alexander Technique teacher. The Alexander Technique is a holistic change method that focuses on re-educating the body system to support us in doing whatever we do better. And we approach it through a physical, we look at posture, we look at the way our body habits stick into place. And so much to my chagrin, when I started working with this lovely woman, who is now a very good friend of mine, she didn't work on my jaw at all. And I'm thinking, don't you listen, lady? This is the problem. My jaw is the problem. But I did not realize that it was not actually the problem. It was just the loudest symptom. And
Mm.
once I started looking at all of the other things I had done, and this was from a very physical standpoint, you know, I was arching my back, I was standing forward on my toes. Of course, I couldn't sing well like that. So when
Mm.
I started getting everything else put back in place or organized the way it needed to be organized, all of a sudden it was like the jaw problem, poof, it just wasn't an issue anymore because all of my habits weren't allowing it to really be the loudest symptom.
Yeah.
And at that time, I had no idea how significant that discovery was. But over 20 years later, I can look back and say that was that really first experience of me saying, oh gosh, it's not about what the loudest symptom is. It's really about looking at the whole picture and
Mm.
figuring out what I need to choose to move forward in a way that really reflects who I am and where I'm going.
Wow, I really appreciate that story. It's so authentic because you couldn't make something like that up. I mean, it's just not something that, oh, because you go to these webinars or workshops or whatever, and the keynote gets up and they spend 10 minutes telling you about how they had to rescue their dog from a river or something or whatever it is, and you're like, I don't have anything like that in my life. How am I ever going to do this? But if we look at our lives in the bigger picture, that's what I love about this book and how it's helping me open up and say, yeah, look at the bigger look from. So I just finished, by the way, everyone, I'm only halfway through because it really takes that concentration. I want to be able, when I'm reading it, to absorb it, not to just read it. So I'm reading it slowly, but I just finished the chapter on 30,000 feet above.
Yep. Perspective.
And
Yes.
in the plane, a view from above. I just loved it. I just loved it a lot. But so that backstory, it's so compelling in the way that you tell it. By the way, everyone, this woman is a storyteller. This woman knows how to tell a good story, and she has some amazingly fantastic stories in this book, not just hers, but other people's stories. But I want to read something that's in the early part of the book that I underlined, and it really spoke to me. And I want to talk about it. So you have on page 29, famed drama critic Brooks Atkinson said, the most fatal illusion is the settled point of view. Since life is growth and motion, a fixed point of view kills anybody who has one. Wow.
I read that quote and it totally stopped me in my tracks. It totally stopped me in my tracks because I thought it is such an illusion to think we know it all. And I say that very intentionally, think we know it all, because it is also important to remember we always know something.
Yeah.
Even when we aren't sure where we're going, even when we're not sure how to do it, even when we're scared out of our mind, which I don't shy away from talking about how fearful and anxiety ridden and powerless this process can feel. I don't shy away from talking about that in the book. But what really is important to remember is we always know something. We always have tools, even when we think we have no resources. We actually do. It's just a matter of going back through and saying, oh, that's that. It's re-identifying, it's sort of reclaiming this idea of, oh gosh, I have done hard things and made it through.
Yeah.
That is courage. I have fallen or failed and I got up and I tried it again and it came out better. That's resilience. I have been able to look at a situation and say, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but make a couple shifts. That's adaptability. And to me, those are tools we forget about. We forget how valuable they are.
You talk about them. Yeah. The adaptability and resilience and change. And resilience is really, really big because I think people don't give that enough attention or enough credit. And it's amazing how resilient we really are if we stop and think about it, as you just said. Look back on the things that you've overcome, or things that it's for me, it's so enormously comforting reading this book and thinking about things like, well, that was a horrible thing that happened to me, but it does not affect me today. It is not part of my lexicon. It is just something that happened. And did it change me? Did it affect me? Most probably it did. And I didn't, of course, as a child, understand what it was. But today, I can look back and say, that was one of the stepping stones that took me where I am right now. Right? I mean, I want to read here something that you have on page 76. As an adult, moving toward change can feel less comfortable than the predictable back-to-school routine. You were talking about going back to school. I remember that excitement of, oh, you had your new outfit and your new shoes, and you're going back to school.
My favorite time of year.
Me too. We're no longer in the pool's shallow end, and we're reminded our feet can't always touch the ground. How scary is that?
It's so scary. And I want to point out one thing is, it's partially because we're always on to the next thing. And this is great. I talk about this kind of paradox a lot. We do a lot of things because they're old habit survival instincts, right? We need to be on to the next. We don't need to sit around and brood and dwell, right? Like we always are moving toward what can take us somewhere else. But in that haste, in that habit, sometimes we forget to celebrate these things that are actually big wins. When we do something little that's resilient or exhibits courage or any of these kind of things, when we successfully make a change when we weren't sure that we could, it's an amazing opportunity to look at our system and say, you did that. Awesome. Let's put that in the bank. So that the next time this happens, the system doesn't go, oh, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. No, we've done this before. Look, hey, remember, we've done this before. But if we don't intentionally put that in the bank, as I just mentioned, I like that kind of phrasing of it. If we don't do that as a choice, if we don't make the choice to remind ourselves that we have done it before and we can do it again, and we've got some proof that we can go back to, it gets really easy to forget, because in our current moment, there are so many overwhelming circumstances that can throw us off.
Yeah, well, also, I think that we're kind of taught to do what you just said. Keep moving forward, and we're the experiences that we haven't. Can you hear what's going on in the background? It's a little bit loud here.
I don't think I can, but
okay, good. Maybe it's not coming through. They're doing a remodel in my bathroom. But the point being that the point you just made is so valuable, as certainly as an adult. And I think it would be so lovely if we could teach this to our children. If you could go in and speak at schools and help them understand the value of putting these little things in the bank and having that there because then they can tap into it when, you know, life interferes with them and throws a rock at them or whatever, because it always happens, right? Nobody lives this wonderful, perfect life. Everyone, it doesn't matter who it is, their life is not perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect life. But you also have in here, and this is a big part of kind of what you're saying, I think, where you talk about stretch, permission, and perspective. Stretch is essential for change, and permission and perspective act as levers that increase choice and opportunity. And then rather than a new building, we might realize we need to construct a bridge or a tunnel that connects us to our next step. Talk about that. That's like, I mean, the idea of the bridge or the tunnel and stretching. And I stretch every morning physically, you know, and do my stretches. I think it works. It does something to me mentally. It helps.
Absolutely. And it's the perfect example of to say, if you would wake up on day one and expect to do what you can do 2 months after regular stretching and put those next to each other, it might not be possible. But if you have a practice of moving yourself outside your comfort zone, not so you're hurting yourself, not so your body is panicking and going, oh my gosh, you're not doing handstands and, you know, dangerous things that might hurt you and put your body in a state of panic. You're actually just, you're strengthening this muscle, this habit of stretching, which actually then increases your ability to do some of these other things, right? And, you know, for some people that stretch is really narrow. Maybe you can only reach a couple inches, you know, and that's okay. It's still a stretch. A stretch is a stretch. And over time it increases because it's cumulative. It builds on itself.
Yeah, it's a consistency. It's a, you build a habit. So that's something to kind of talk about a little. And you quoted on James Clear, Atomic Habits, and how many of us have read that book? Because it's easier than people think to change a bad habit for a good habit. So for instance, I have this ongoing conversation with my children about making their bed in the morning. I mean, they're grown. These are grown children that are off in the world. And I say to them, you should make your bed every morning, because that is one of the very first things that you do. That is a very good habit that sets you up for a better day. And they still arguing with me about it, but isn't that true?
Absolutely.
Like that.
Absolutely. What's really funny and interesting for me about any of these habits is to look at this idea of stretch, right? And then talking about this permission and perspective that build in, and they kind of act as, I use the word, you know, levers or, you know, interactive tools that we can, resources that we can build on. And I just think to myself, there's something also about some of these, if you don't do it, you failed. If you don't do it, you failed, right? And I think it stops people from stretching because they think, if I can't do this right, or if I can't do this well, or if I don't do it in a way that I'm going to fail. And instead, what if we give ourselves permission to say, you might not do it every day, but that's okay too. I think sometimes there is this do or die mental attitude that comes into play, and looking at it into perspective. Do I like coming into my room at the end of the day and seeing a made bed? Yeah, a lot of people do. And if you can think to yourself in that moment, like, listen, this is not the end of the world. If you really don't want to do this, if you really do not have the time to make your bed, I give you the permission to step away from doing this. But let's think about how it's sort of how this whole idea of stretch, permission, perspective works. They work together. And if we're stuck in one going like, make my bed, don't make my bed, make my bed, don't make my bed, we become our own strange, you know, purveyor of bad thought loops. That's what we're trying to break free from, is to really just say, hey, we don't know what's going to happen. Let's just move with it. Let's just move with it. And
I like that a lot, because I make my bed. I've always made my bed. And it's like, I keep pushing my kids to make their bed, and they're resistant. And I think what you just said is really fantastic. It's like, so maybe making their bed isn't the thing.
Mhm.
That I'm trying to make it, right? I'm trying to say to them, well, you should do this. Well, they are saying, we don't care about the bed being made. Maybe it's something else entirely. I really like that a lot. That really helps me because I've been so frustrated trying to teach them at the ages of 46 and 42 and 40, and it's like, come on, make your bed. But maybe they don't have to make their bed. Maybe their stretch exercise is something else.
And sometimes the permission and allowance that it's okay if you don't do it, all of a sudden, it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I've had that experience a lot. I put a lot of pressure on myself at times. That is definitely something with this book. You know, there were moments of going, well, if you don't do this, I felt the internal voices, you know, well, you better do this. If you don't do a good job, if you don't finish this chapter by this weekend, it's all over. And I had to look at myself and just say, oh, hold on a second. I'm going to give myself permission to say I'm exhausted this weekend. I had intentions of sitting down to do this, but that's okay. I will get to it next. And I did. I always did, because I came back to holding myself accountable in a supportive way and really looking at how I could make choices that were helping me move forward. If I was always giving into my fears and anxieties, that's a different story. But really looking at sort of where some of this resistance comes from, and permission has been a huge thing for me in my life. That was actually maybe one of my most fun chapters to write, the chapter on permission, just because it really, for me, the experience of having to give myself physically permission happened on top of a trapeze platform when I had a friend talk me into doing an outdoor trapeze.
Yeah, that story about the trapeze platform is really powerful, folks. I just want to tell you, it's one of the best stories in the book, Lisa. I mean, it speaks to everyone, because there are times when you feel like you're on the trapeze platform.
Absolutely. And being on the precipice of having to make that decision and really give myself permission felt super pivotal in that moment. And again, I wouldn't have sat there. I didn't finish that trapeze run, and I didn't do all of that and then say, wow, I just mastered the huge skill of making pivotal choices. Of course not. It just was a thing that happened to my body. And later with time, when I could look back and really say, what did that mean? What did that do? How did that really change? Because it felt like it had changed something in my life, but I couldn't have told you what in that moment.
Right? Wow, that's awesome. I really love that. So I also want to say that on page 106, chapter 7, the permission to launch chapter, I want to end with talking about this particular sentence. Research on psychological safety, as well as polyvagal theory, is that how you say it? Has proven that although everything you want may be on the other side of fear, establishing safety is crucial to the ability to move toward change. Safety. Talk about that. Wow.
This could be a whole topic in and of itself. And in a world where we have so much information coming at us, we have learned to put up defenses. And we have learned to be skeptical. We have really cultivated a habit of distrust and judgment first, and making assumptions before we allow ourselves to get engaged. And there is this space there of, when we break that down, to say, we're not really safe until we can understand our environment and what's going on here. That's a little bit of a big extreme example, but in any given situation, forcing yourself to do something when you're truly not ready is going to backfire on you. It's going to trigger a lot. We have to feel safe. So it's so important to cultivate. And like, again, This is not to bypass the fact that if we have trauma or if there's something really serious going on in our lives that we need to work on first, absolutely, that's an important thing to understand. But from us, again, it's sort of like that we can't really make someone do something. Someone has to make the choice to step forward on their own. And it's not always easy. It's often laden with challenges. And as I like to say, everyone thinks of change as a straight line from here to there. But if you zoom in, it's all of these twists and turns and curves that when you zoom out, appear like you had a very straightforward path.
Yes.
So it's important to remember that this idea of needing to find some safety sometimes comes from within. Sometimes we can get the support from outside of us, but it is really essential for establishing this idea of what it means as a baseline to be empowered as we move forward. And again, not because it's the absolute, but because we know, even if it's a choice we don't want to make or we realize in hindsight isn't the best thing for us, guess what? We can choose again. We can keep choosing.
Exactly.
I mean, choosing over and over and over again.
Yeah, we're going to have to end there because the realization and recognition that stepping out of that safety zone, if you're ready, and not achieving exactly what you thought that doesn't mean you failed. It's just another, I love the way you said about the line having, if you zoom in on it, little twists and turns and knots. It's just, that was a little knot that you untied. And so now you can move forward.
Totally.
Yeah. So we're going to have to end today. And this has been, I mean, I could sit here and talk about this book all day. This is a book. I am so fond of this book. I want everyone to buy this book. Connect with Lisa. Lisa, where do you want people to connect with you?
Please visit my website, join my mailing list so you can keep updated on newsletters and happenings and things going on. I'll share tidbits and things like that. You can download the introduction there for free if you wish to do so. And then, of course, connect on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's always really great to build networks and connect because ultimately we build each other up. And as you know, Yvonne, we can't do this alone as authors, as individuals, but we're in this for a much, much bigger end game. And that's really about all of us achieving everything we want to in our lives. So that's my goal. I thank you for being a part of it. And I'm very grateful for this conversation today.
This was great, everyone. You see all the little tabs I have, and there will be more because I haven't finished the book, but I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to share this book with you, everyone. Embracing the Unknown, Lisa DeAngelis. I mean, I just put it in front of my face because this book really will transform you. I promise you that it will. Lisa, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I expect we'll talk some more about this.
I would love to.
This is 𝒂𝓂𝒃𝓃𝑔. You've been watching and listening to Smart Conversations, and we're all done for today. We'll see you on the flip side.